When I took my vows, I thought I knew what my life would look like. I thought I understood the path I was walking. But life doesn't always follow the rules we set for it. And sometimes, the people we trust the most, they change everything. At first, I didn't think much of it, a fleeting glance here, a kind word there. He was my pastor, a man I respected deeply, someone I admired for his wisdom and compassion. Our interactions always felt natural, comforting even, like a steady light in my otherwise structured and predictable life. But as time went on, those moments began to linger. His kindness felt more personal, his words carried a weight I couldn't quite put into words. At first, I dismissed it, told myself it was just a passing thought, nothing more. After all, I had taken my vows, devoted myself to a higher calling. My life wasn't supposed to be complicated. But that pull, it wouldn't go away. I found myself drawn to him, not just as a leader or a guide, but as a man who saw me, not the nun, not the role I played, but me. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. We didn't set out for this to happen. There wasn't a grand moment where it all began. It was slow, quiet, like a river eroding the edges of my resolve. And when we finally gave in, when we crossed that line, it felt like everything I had ever believed in was both shattered and complete, all at once. He became everything I never realized I was missing. In his presence, the weight of the world felt lighter, and for the first time, I didn't feel like just a role, a sister, a servant, a symbol. I felt like a person, seen and understood in a way that left me breathless. There was a warmth in his voice, an understanding in his gaze, and slowly, I began to crave it. It started with small things, a glance that lingered a second too long, words that felt personal in ways they shouldn't have, moments that felt like they existed outside of time. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't real, that I was imagining it, but every interaction seemed to draw us closer. I couldn't stop it, and deep down, I didn't want to. We both knew what was at stake, the risks we were taking. We were supposed to lead by example, uphold the sacred. But with him, every rule, every vow, felt like an invisible force I no longer wanted to obey. The love we shared was undeniable, impossible to fight. It felt like a fire, dangerous, consuming, but also the only thing keeping me alive. It wasn't just physical, though I won't pretend it wasn't part of it. It was deeper than that, a connection that filled every lonely space I had learned to ignore. With him, I felt whole. I knew it was wrong. I knew we were building something that could destroy everything. But when we crossed the line, it was already too late. I was his, and he was mine, and there was no turning back. But as the days turned into weeks, and those stolen moments became more frequent, the love we shared grew stronger, so did the guilt. It became a constant companion, one I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried. Every time I looked at him, my heart soared, but in the back of my mind, there was always that voice, whispering, reminding me of what we were doing, what we were risking. We'd meet in secret, our hands brushing, lingering in places they shouldn't. Every touch, every whisper, was like a silent promise, binding us closer. But with each act, each quiet moment we stole from the world, the weight of it grew heavier. The guilt gnawed at me, digging into my conscience. I remember the nights when I'd sit alone in the silence of my room, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and shame. I would kneel by my bed, the cool stone floor beneath me offering no comfort as I prayed, begging for clarity, for answers. But every prayer felt hollow, like the words I spoke were being swallowed by the vast emptiness of my own heart. Was I betraying God by loving him? Was I turning my back on everything I had vowed to uphold? Or was I betraying myself, denying the part of me that felt so alive, so understood, in his arms? I tried to convince myself it was simple, just two souls, lost in each other, sharing a connection that no one could explain. But no matter how I justified it, no matter how much I told myself this love was pure, the guilt never stopped. It suffocated me. There were nights I would lie awake, my mind racing, heart pounding, with the weight of what we had done crushing me from the inside. It was as if I could feel the weight of every vow, every promise, pressing down on my chest, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't escape it. There were times when I thought about confessing, about ending it all before it spiraled any further. But each time, when I was face to face with the reality of what we were doing, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I loved him. I loved him in a way I had never imagined loving anyone. It wasn't just the physical connection. It was the way he understood me, the way he saw me, not as a nun, not as a servant, but as a woman. And that made everything more complicated. I would find myself in church, my hands trembling as I tried to pray, trying to find some kind of peace. But the more I tried to reach out for forgiveness, the more I felt like I was sinking deeper into a place where I didn't belong. It was suffocating, this secret we were carrying. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. The connection was too strong, too real, to simply turn off. I questioned everything, my faith, my choices, my vows. Was this love I felt wrong? Could love really be wrong, if it felt so right? But no matter what I told myself, the guilt was always there, lurking in the back of my mind, never letting me forget what we were doing. But the guilt wasn't just spiritual, it was tangible. I would see it in the way he looked at me, the lines of worry etched into his face. We were both carrying this weight, and some days, it felt like it was too much to bear. How could something so beautiful and pure in one moment feel so suffocating in the next? And then it happened. It was one of those nights when everything felt still, almost like the church was holding its breath after the service had ended. The air was cool, the silence only broken by the soft flicker of the candles lining the altar. We had stayed behind, just the two of us, trying to hold on to the peace we had found in each other. Alone, in the quiet, we thought we were safe. Safe in our secret, safe in our love that we had kept hidden from the world. But nothing ever stays hidden forever. I'll never forget that sound, the faint creak of the door opening just enough to disturb the silence. At first, it was almost imperceptible, but then it became louder, unmistakable. My heart stopped. I don't know if it was the pastor who saw them first or if it was me. All I know is that in that moment, time seemed to slow, as if the world itself paused just to watch. There they were, one of the parishioners, eyes wide in shock. I could see the disbelief spread across their face before the words even came. I could see the moment they realized what was happening. The shock was followed by a rush of whispers. At first, they were quiet, just barely audible, like an echo in a distant hallway. But it didn't take long for the hushed murmurs to grow louder, more urgent. "What's going on? Did you see that? Is that?" Their voices, full of confusion and judgment, filled the space around us. I remember looking at the pastor, his face pale, his eyes wide with panic. For a moment, neither of us could move, as if we were both frozen in place. But the moment we shared was shattered by the sounds of people stirring, their shocked expressions turning into something darker, fear, anger, confusion. The weight of their eyes on us felt like it was suffocating me. The truth, our truth, was suddenly out there, for everyone to see. Everything we had worked so hard to keep private, everything we had tried to protect, was exposed in an instant. There was no hiding, no turning back. All the trust we had built up between us, all the love we had carefully nurtured, it was gone. In that one moment, it was as if the walls we'd so carefully built came crashing down around us, leaving us completely vulnerable. The church, once a place of refuge, now felt like a prison. The quiet, comforting atmosphere that had surrounded us just moments before was replaced by an unbearable tension. I could hear the hushed whispers growing louder, more insistent. They were no longer just wondering. They knew. And as I stood there, in the middle of it all, I could feel my heart racing in my chest. Everything I had tried to protect, everything I had tried to keep from the world, it was all laid bare, exposed for the world to judge. The trust we had built, the respect we once commanded, it was shattered, crumbled into nothing. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape, to take him by the hand and run far away, where no one could find us, where no one could see. But I was paralyzed. And I knew, in that instant, that nothing would ever be the same again. The parishioners knew. They all knew. The whispers started almost immediately, and the judgment followed quickly after. It felt like the entire weight of the world had descended on me in that instant. Everywhere I went, their eyes were on me, full of disbelief, disappointment, anger. It was as if my entire existence, everything I had worked for, everything I had tried to build in the church, was reduced to nothing. I couldn't escape their stares, their murmurs. The walls I had once felt so safe behind were now closing in on me. The once comforting, sacred space that had been my refuge now felt like a cage. Each step I took felt heavier than the last. The echoes of their whispers followed me everywhere. I didn't know where to go, what to do. And then, the hardest part came. Facing them. Facing the people who had trusted us, who had looked up to us as examples of faith and devotion. How could I stand before them now, knowing the truth they could see so clearly? How could I pretend to be the person I once was when I felt so broken, so lost? I walked into the church, my heart pounding in my chest, and I could feel every pair of eyes on me. Their judgment was palpable, and I could barely breathe. I wanted to run, to escape, to disappear, but there was nowhere to hide. And when I stood before them, before all of them, everything I had ever known felt like it was slipping away. The person I had once been, the person they had trusted, was no longer there. The mirror in front of me reflected someone I didn't recognize, someone broken and torn between the person I had been and the person I had become. I had crossed a line I could never uncross, and the weight of it was suffocating. I couldn't undo what we had done. And now, I had to face the consequences. I can't change the past. I can't undo what happened. Every decision I made, every moment we shared, it's all part of what led me here. And no matter how hard I try, I can't take any of it back. But what I've learned, through all the pain, the guilt, the heartbreak, is that love isn't always what we expect it to be. It's not always pure or simple. Sometimes, love is messy. It's complicated. And it doesn't always fit neatly into the boxes we think it should. Love isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's a blur. And in those moments, when you're so deep inside something, it's hard to know right from wrong. We try to make sense of it, but sometimes, we just can't. So, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have kept the secret, tried to protect it for as long as you could? Or would you have confessed everything, no matter the cost? I want to hear your thoughts, your feelings on this. What do you think is right? What would you have done? Please, share your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more, and remember, we all have stories, some we share and some we keep hidden.